challenges related to the cost of living and financial stress for consumers. These are some of the things that we'll be talking about on today's episode. Don't go anywhere. Money Matters starts now. Hello there, you're tuned in to Money Matters. I'm Azaria Tagaya, your host for this week's episode, and today the spotlight is on consumers. Of course, when we talk about consumers, we're going to be talking a lot about the challenges related to the cost of living, the prices of essential items, as well as financial stress faced by consumers as well. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about the floods, which has been a very recent topic that has been grabbing the headlines and has affected consumers as well. And to shed light on today's topic, joining us live in the studio today, we have Consumers International President Datuk N Marimuthu. Hello, Datuk. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Yep.
Well, as I said just now, we're talking about consumers and consumers' rights and woes faced by the consumers. The floods, which has happened recently. Now, the government is focusing on comprehensive, long-term solutions to the flood problem in Malaysia, in the country. And this is evident through the special parliament meeting on the floods on Thursday. But in your opinion, what is the main problem that actually resulted in the woes, the flood woes faced by the consumers?
I think one had to understand that we are not prepared for any disaster. Although there's a standard for preparedness, which is ISO standard, but unfortunately we are not prepared. That's one. Second thing is that we never had anything to do with long-term planning. Like example, if you're building 1,000 houses in a new garden or residential area, one had to make sure that the drains are huge to cater to clear. And the other thing you have to see that is the DID, the Drainage and Irrigation Department. They are not playing their function well. They have never, I can't see anywhere they have deepened their rivers or cleaning up the rivers. So these are all affected, especially during the flood situation.
I see.
So this it had to be continuously, not during there's a flood situation. It had to be always. And not only that, and you can look at our rivers. Our people, our rivers are not clean. They have not been dug for many, many years. And you can see that it is the siltation, things like that. Like example, you can take Singapore. You see Singapore, just because of the long-term planning, plus now their flood situation is 0.01%. Because they are doing it in a regular basis. We are doing firefighting. When something happens, the whole country kecho.
I see. Then we look at the problem.
Then only we look at the problem. We are not forecasting anything.
Yeah.
Same goes to cost of living, same goes to prices of goods and services. And if we can keep on going. And you can see even the level of people who are managing the situation. People are just waiting for direction, like as if we don't have leadership currently in any situation.
I see.
So this has caused many Malaysian frustration.
Okay, well, speaking about irrigation and drainage and flood mitigation measures, of course, the long-term measures that the government is looking at it could include flood mitigation projects, deepening rivers, and also waterways and building tunnels, such as the Smart Tunnel. Do you think that this approach would be comprehensive enough to tackle the flood problems, taking into account what you just said just now about?
Yeah, but this is only like we are talking about it at this moment. And you see, when there's some other situation happen or incident happen, we'll be talking about that and no one monitors this. See, that's the problem. That is what we need, a proper leadership to make sure that those who are in charge to execute what we have planned.
Okay.
So that is one. And one also had to understand where the flood-prone areas. You see, we have never discussed much on climate change. I think the meteorological department have issued warning much earlier, telling that it's going to be worse. And people have never taken the hint, to, especially the National Disaster Center and many other agencies which are supposed to come in. They were waiting for someone to tell them when to move in.
Okay. What about the amount that has been spent by the government? On Thursday, the finance minister mentioned that after the floods, the government has spent about 2 billion ringgit on flood aid alone, and this amount is expected to increase, of course, after they receive the full report on the flood damage received so far. So, as far as aid and assistance given to those that were affected by the floods, what are your views on this approach, on the assistance?
See, the assistance is good, but it's not enough, because if you can see, like in Taman Sri Muda, it's very clearly, because the electrical goods and everything, it's easily a minimum assessment can tell you anything. It can be between 15 to 20,000, and it's going to take. I think so. If you take a drive around that area, you can see the smells, no, and plus the debris which is down there, and it's like a war zone area. And definitely those who have bought there, because they might have, that's the only property they might have.
Yeah.
And they are going to go through with not only the losses of the items, but also mental torture.
Yes, indeed.
And they're going to have a lot of distress among them.
I see.
No? And you can see that they have promised the aid, but sometimes the aid have never reached. It's going to be in a month. So we are too slow for everything. So we can't go on doing this, because one had to understand, yes, you can say the flood is the act of God, that's one. But one had to understand that those who are managing things today are not managing in a proper way. And who are these managing? The district office. I mean, you can go to the Majlis and the DID. We can go on. And the Department of Environment who approve lot of things, a lot of construction without thinking what is the impact going to be for long term. And finally, you see the victims are the people.
I see.
The Rakyat.
So indeed, a long-term comprehensive solution is needed in this area. Well, Dato, we have to go for a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about the cost of essential food items. That's coming up next on Money Matters. Thank you for staying with us on Money Matters. We're still talking about consumers with the President of Consumers International, Datuk N. Marimuthu. Datuk, now before the break we talked about the flood woes faced by the people. Now we want to talk more about the cost of essential items. First of all, errant traders. How do you think would be the best approach for us to actually tackle the issue of errant traders? And what role do consumers have in this? Does it make sense to ask consumers to keep an eye on these traders? What do you think?
Well, it is going to be tough because our import bill for 2019 itself is 55 billion ringgit Malaysia. In fact, we import everything. Only chicken and egg is more like a self-sufficient level. Other things we import. Cereals, 100%. Beef, 79%. Okay? Fish, close to 95%. Vegetables. And we can keep on going. So, when we are importing all these items, so the prices cannot go down because these prices has been determined from the other country, which we purchase, which we import.
Yeah.
And that is bad. And one had to understand, the ringgit is falling. So we are not getting stronger, we are getting weaker, our ringgit. So, as you know, the international trading is all based on US dollars.
I see.
So we need to accept that particular reality in Malaysia. But of course, if you ask me whether the enforcement is sufficient or not, of course I would tell it's not sufficient because we can see that it's only, what we can say is that they are active during Hari Raya, when we Chinese New Year,
Festival,
Diwali.
Christmas, yeah.
They are more like a festive ministry. They are not a ministry as a whole. During festive, they are just trying to show that they are doing something. But it had to be continuously enforcement. Enforcement cannot be sometime. Enforcement must be always.
Okay. What about the proposal that the enforcement should not be carried out just by the Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Ministry, but should be a combined effort of several ministries? What do you think about this?
Well, that I do agree. But sometimes the ministries, they are looking after their turf. So that's the whole problem in Malaysia because no one wants to encroach in other people's turf. So they had to work as a whole team. That then only we can make sure that the prices, we can have check and balance on prices. Because we had to understand to keep the prices down. We also had to do away with AP because we have AP for all products.
Yeah.
So due to that, the prices have been monopoly by a certain group of people.
Yeah.
If you want to make sure that the prices are affordable to the Malaysian at large, one had to do we had to make trade easy. What do I mean by trade easy? It's simple. It will make sure that the processors of people who are bringing in or importing these kind of items give everyone an opportunity, not a certain group of people which monopolize all the profits.
So when it comes to the prices of items, especially such as vegetable supplies, for instance, it's learned that these items were actually channeled through the market before they eventually found their way to the smaller sundry outlets, which results in a rise in prices along the supply chain. So I'm sure you've looked at this issue. It's one of the more relevant issues to our country at the moment. So what are some of the findings by consumers groups?
No, I think so. MyCC, the Malaysian Competition Commission, they did a good finding in 2019. They told the prices are very high due to the middleman.
Okay.
So the finding is there. It's been done by the government agency. The government agency reported. But what is the continuous action? That the government of the day have to make things happen.
What about the demand and supply? Does that have any effect?
Demand and supply, the effect is, if you ask me, of course, every product there will be a demand. And okay, the supply. For us, as I told you, we are depending on total import. So if the demand is high, we have to make sure that the supply is there.
So an alternative would be for consumers to shop online, to get better prices online. So following the COVID-19 pandemic here in Malaysia, do you think the consumers' preference is now shifting more towards online buying? What's your take on this?
Yeah, but this is the new trend, new norm. But one had to understand that our advice to consumer at large is that, yes, you can go do shopping online, but make sure it's a registered platform. So that when there is a dispute, like the National Consumer Complaint Center can be in assistance. If so, not, we'll have difficult, because sometimes people are just buying, looking at Facebook, whether we don't know whether it's a registered or not, or it might be Instagram, some products and all that which people are posting, some profiles and all that. So I will advise is that we have advised, because there are enough scammers in the country. One, and to make sure that it's a registered platform, legally registered platform, so that if there is a dispute, you can get your redresses.
Okay, so there's a need to be more alert of the risk and do your own risk assessment when you're going to
I think so. The PDRM have created a website who have given sufficient information on that.
I see.
It's called, I don't know, My SEMA or something like that.
Okay.
So that's why what I would like to urge the consumer at large is that make sure that you check, take precaution before you be cheated.
Yeah, so the consumer has their role as well.
Yeah.
Very well, Datuk. Now, after this, we're going to be talking about the cost of living that has been affecting consumers as of late. That is coming up next. Don't go anywhere. Money Matters will be back after the break. You're still with us on Money Matters. We are with our guest, the President of Consumers International, Datuk N. Marimuthu. Datuk, as we said just now, we're going to talk about the rising cost of living for Malaysians, which has been a concern as of late, especially after the pandemic, where some from the T20 group have now moved to the M40 group. So some economists have called for an urgent need to tackle this issue, this problem relating to the cost of living for consumers. Now, what's your take on this, and how do you think this can be tackled, and what do you actually propose?
If you look at the cost of living, it's definitely going up. Everything has gone up. I mean, purchasing a house, purchasing a car, even food items, education, rentals, all have gone up.
Yeah.
And if you're going to tackle this position currently, I mean, for the betterment of consumers, the first thing is that many people have lost their jobs. The government of the day had to create jobs for them.
Yeah.
That's one. Create jobs. And we need political stability to make sure that foreign direct investment comes into the country.
Indeed.
If we don't have a stable government, and then we don't have clear policy, and then investors will get away. So this is completely back again as what I was telling. It all falls back on the leadership of the day to make sure that things happen and progress. If you look at it during the COVID, our own findings, from CAS's own finding is a couple of issues. We have seen non-performing loans have increased. Okay, repossession of cars will be going to happen soon. Many. Then even unemployment rates. The young workers are the worst, because they are affected, because they are young workers. What do I mean? They would have just got married. They lost their job. And there's going to be a social change. I mean, there's going to be a chain reaction where a lot of people will be divorced or separated.
Yeah.
And I think so. There's some figure issued like 72,000 during this pandemic. So this is quite alarming. And not only that, this also push people to create their mental stress. The mental stress itself has become a big issue in the country currently. Because we don't know how people are behaving themselves because they are in the right frame of mind or they're having stressful life. So everything have contributed, and this is the worst period, if you ask me, even for the consumer movement, to make sure that how are we going to play a balanced act by advising the consumers at large.
We'll talk more about the social and mental issues that you mentioned just now, but I want to touch a little bit on housing affordability in Malaysia. Now, for example, Kuala Lumpur's desired median market price is around 380,000 ringgit, while Terengganu would be around 200,000 ringgit. So how can we establish a housing affordability threshold setting since it differs across the different localities and states?
See, if you look at, let's speak about Klang Valley. This is where everyone wants to come to work here.
Yeah.
Okay. We had to give priority for the first-time buyers, not those who are going to speculate. Okay. So give them the opportunity, especially build more apartments, affordable apartment for the first-time buyers. That's one. We need to create that, especially for them. Then only we can see that the prices, we can manage it. Because we can understand that it's not easy to maintain the prices due to people are speculating. People who have money, they're buying. Like example now, even after the pandemic, many people are disposing their properties cheaper because they need the cash flow. So they need the cash. So they're selling it as like less than like if it's like going to be, if it's 200,000 ringgit, they don't mind selling it even up to 160 or 170.
Yeah, I've seen that happen as well.
Yeah, so because they want to survive, they want to cut losses, they want to pay their debts. So it is. So if you ask me, means the government must build affordable housing for the first-time buyers.
Okay, so talking about debt and also low income and rising debt, especially after the pandemic, which, as you said just now, has resulted in mental issues for some people, social problems as well. How do you think this can be addressed?
You see, it can be addressed because that is why you see, one had to see the environment around us. That means I always come back to this question of managing it, building confidence. Now, what the country needs is that the current government or the government of the day must build confidence of the rakyat.
Yeah.
That the government is doing enough to make sure that the rakyat will survive.
Yes, indeed. Now, Datuk, we have only a few minutes left, but I must ask you this question. There's been this ongoing debate on further EPF withdrawals. What's your take on this issue?
Honestly, the money today, people needs money. People can't go to Along. If they want to go to a pawn shop, they need to have goals. So I think so it's their money, at least for the minimum 10,000 they can withdraw.
Okay.
The government should give, because the government also not helping us, the consumers. So this is their money. They need the money now, not at old age. We don't know whether at the old age we're going to survive or not.
Okay.
When we cannot survive now, what are we talking about 20 years from now?
I see.
So my personal take on this is that the government should allow.
I see. Very well, Datuk. Well, Datuk, that's all the time we have for this week's episode. Thank you so much once again for spending time with us on Money Matters this week.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you as well to you for watching. That's been the show for this week. Hopefully you've had some interesting insights to pick up from this week's discussion. As always, Money Matters will be back again next week with more money insights that matter. Till then, I'm Azaria Tagaya. Stay safe and take care.